In a sweltering summer heat, 1985, the terrified people of Los Angeles County and the San Francisco Bay Area made sure their doors and windows were locked because a prowler was on the loose. He sexually assaulted 11 of his victims and would kill the husbands first, then rape their wives. In the space of just 5 months, he claimed the lives of 13 individuals. In today's episode, we conclude our look into the life and crimes of Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. Welcome to another episode of the Cabinet of Dr. Mystery. I am your host, Dr. Mystery.
Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Will tend to become used to his acts of violence, and therefore it becomes more easy to do.
There is a compulsive element, a drive kind of element, which pushes them to continue to repeat these crimes until the point that they're caught.
Nobody knows where this individual may strike next.
I'm afraid for everybody, elderly, young, everybody.
I've been very apprehensive. I keep my doors locked and my guns loaded.
I like to sleep with the windows open and stuff, especially during this hot weather, but closing everything.
Last night we had everything locked up, had the dog in the house, and even though it was hot, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I mean, it's frightening.
Just a friendly reminder that today's subject matter is graphic in nature. As always, we've included links to mental health programs, and we encourage you to reach out if you're experiencing a mental health crisis. In our last episode, we left halfway through Richard Ramirez's crime spree. Media attention drove Richard to leave Los Angeles and head to the San Francisco Bay Area. If you haven't already listened to our previous episode, I encourage you to do so before listening further in this episode. We're not going to be doing a recap about what we covered in the last episode, so if you want to follow the story, then please reach back into our archives and check out episode 8, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker.
And serial killers and most killers in general have a dead conscience. No morals, no scruples, no conscience. For some, it is the very act of killing another human being that is sexual to them. Bloodlust, I guess you could say. Normal, ordinary people do not think like a serial killer. They have no conception of what is going through a killer's mind, how he operates. Some serial killers will let you live if you talk to them, if you get to know them, if they get to know you. Some serial killers will take pity while others won't. And this not only applies to serial killers, but killers in general. Is it chemistry? Is it genetics? Is there such a thing as a bad seed when a baby is born? Is he already a serial killer? Or is he created by his own deeds and feelings throughout his life and his environment? I think there is a divine force that is out there. I believe also there's a malevolent force that is out there. Then again, they could be one and the same. Death is death, and it is said that no man knows his own death. Sure, for a few minutes you might feel it. I've really not given it much thought to that.
August 18th, 1985. Richard Ramirez enters the home of Peter and Barbara Pan. He shot the sleeping Peter, age 66, in the temple with a .25 caliber handgun. He then beat and sexually assaulted his 62-year-old wife, Barbara, before shooting her in the head and leaving her for dead. He then urinated in their toilet, went into their refrigerator, took their food, ate it, regurgitated it, and vomited, and later masturbated all over their carpet. So this guy goes in and he shoots the man in the head, and then he goes to the wife, and he beats her, and he rapes her, and then he shoots her in the head, letting her bleed out and die. He goes into their bathroom and pisses, and just leaves it. Fuck it. And then he goes into their fridge, right? And he takes out a bunch of their food. He gets a banana out too. He eats the banana, eats the food. And then he makes himself sick all over their carpet. And then, at the sight of this chaos and utter mess that he's made, he masturbates onto their carpet. This guy's a fucking animal. There are so many people that... I'm not a fan of Richard Ramirez. I'm a fan of the story behind it. I'm a fan of the psychology behind it. I am fascinated with the idea that this boy was made into a psychopathic, mutilating serial murderer, serial rapist. And I'm fascinated with the idea of how someone gets to that point in their life. How everything in Richard's life lined him up to be who he was. There are many people that suffer from hybristophilia, which is a fascination or a... See, hybristophilia is more than a fascination. It is, you need to reach sexual arousal or to climax, you need to have that individual who's the bad boy, who's more than a bad boy. He's a known cheater or infidelity. You know, he has known infidelities, or he's a liar, or even worse, he's committed arson or rape or murder, right? And there are people, which is also another fascinating thing for me, there are people that need to have those checked off on their list before they can be aroused, or, you know, and we'll get into detail later about hybristophilia and how that affected certain individuals who would later become a part of Richard's life while he was in prison. We'll discuss his future wife. But there are a lot of people that are fans of Richard Ramirez, and I just want to make it very clear that I am not a fan. I think that he's an absolute maniac. Obviously, there are certain aspects about him where he has insight in the later years in prison there. You can check out, I'll post some interviews on the socials if I can, but you can check out interviews with Richard. And he is a very insightful, intelligent human being. And as I said previously in our last episode, he met the Church of Satan's founder, Anton LaVey, and LaVey said he was a fantastic guy, very polite, very nice guy. But, you know, and you can look at BTK, Bind, Torture, Kill, Dennis Rader, right? He killed, I'm not even sure how many people he killed off the top of my head, but, you know, he killed countless people, and he was a sadistic maniac, a vile human being. But he was also very active in the church. He was a high up leader, an individual in the church, where, you know, he would send letters from the church while he was in the church's office. And he was supposed to be an all-around wonderful, kind, caring family guy, yet he had this dark sadistic side where he would go out and commit these murders. So, in addition to urinating and vomiting and masturbating all over this couple's home, he also left some satanic messages and some graffiti at the crime scene. Ramirez used lipstick to scrawl a pentagram on the wall and the phrase, "Jack the Knife," as well. In our last episode, we also talked about how ballistics from an earlier crime scene matched later ones in the future. And this is the point when they started using evidence from these crime scenes and they started making a connection. And when they connected the San Francisco murders with the quote-unquote Valley Intruder murders, the media reintroduced Ramirez as the Night Stalker. When it was discovered that the ballistics and shoe print evidence from the Los Angeles crime scenes matched the Pan crime scene, San Francisco's mayor, Dianne Feinstein, divulged information in a televised press conference. So this was private information, this was privileged information that the police were not sharing, and when this information was leaked, it infuriated the detectives working on the case. They knew that the killer was going to be following the media coverage, and this information gave him the opportunity to destroy crucial forensic evidence. And they were right. They were 100% right that Dianne, or I guess I should say the Mayor Feinstein, really messed up. Ramirez saw this. He's been watching the press, watching media coverage, and he took his size 11.5 Avia sneakers and he threw them over the side of the Golden Gate Bridge that night. After the news conference, he remained in the area for a few more days before heading back to the Los Angeles area. Now, there's a report of a break-in that was similar to Ramirez's MO, and it's believed to be Richard. This couple, they weren't home at the time, but their 16-year-old niece was home. Hearing someone enter through the bathroom window, she hid in the closet. Luckily, the intruder was unable to find the young girl, ransacked the home, and later left. Unknown to the thief, the homeowner engraved a social security number into the jewelry. Detectives used this to connect the stolen goods to a shop 290 miles away. This bracelet was turned in by a confidential informant in Lompoc, California. Under police interrogation, they informed the CI that they believed the CI's friend, known only as Rick, who gave him the bracelet to fence, was the Night Stalker. Eventually, the CI gave them the name Richard Ramirez. This was another significant connection and a big break in the case. On August 24, 1985, Ramirez traveled 76 miles south of Los Angeles in a stolen orange Toyota to Mission Viejo. That night, he arrived at the home of James Romero Jr., who had just returned from a family vacation. Romero's 13-year-old son, James Romero III, happened to be awake and heard Ramirez's footsteps outside the house. Thinking there was a prowler, James went to wake his parents, and Ramirez fled the scene. James raced outside and noted the color, make, and style of the car, as well as a partial license plate number. Romero contacted the police with this information, believing his son James had chased away a thief. After fleeing the Romero home, Ramirez broke into the house of Bill Carnes, age 30, and his 29-year-old fiancée Inez Erickson. Ramirez entered the sleeping couple's bedroom and awakened Carnes when he cocked his .25 caliber handgun. He shot Carnes 3 times in the head before turning his attention to Erickson. Ramirez told the woman that he was the Night Stalker and forced her to swear she loved Satan as he beat her with his fists and bound her with neckties from the closet. After stealing what he could find, Ramirez dragged Erickson to another room to rape her. He then demanded cash and more jewelry and made her swear on Satan that he had gotten all the valuables. One terrifying, chilling fact is that before he left the home, Ramirez looked at Erickson and said to her, "Tell them the Night Stalker was here." Clearly, he doesn't give a fuck, and he just wants to be as infamous and chaotic as he can. Erickson then untied herself and went to a neighbor's house to get help for her severely injured fiancé. Surgeons removed 2 of the bullets from his head, and he survived his injuries. Cairns ended up in a group home with one bullet remaining lodged in his head. Erickson was able to give a detailed description of the assailant to investigators, and police obtained a cast of Ramirez's footprint from the Romero house. The stolen orange Toyota car was found on August 28th in Wilshire Center, Los Angeles. From the vehicle, police obtained a single fingerprint from the rearview mirror. This print was positively identified as belonging to Richard Ramirez, who was described as a 25-year-old drifter from Texas with a long rap sheet that included many arrests for traffic and illegal drug violations. With multiple eyewitness testimonies, police sketches, and the connection between the Avia shoes, as well as fingerprint evidence and the bracelet from the earlier robbery, police were convinced that they had found their killer. On August 30th, 1985, law enforcement officials decided to release to the media a mugshot of Ramirez from a December 12, 1984 arrest for auto theft. With this, the Night Stalker finally had a face. At the police press conference, the police announced, quote, "We know who you are now, and soon everyone else will too. There will be no place you can hide." The same day as the press conference, August 30th, 1985, Richard took a bus to Tucson, Arizona to visit his brother. He was unaware that he had become the lead story in every major newspaper and television news program across California. When his plans to meet his brother failed, Richard returned to Los Angeles the following morning on August 31st. Once at the bus terminal, he walked past police officers who were staking out the bus terminal in hopes of catching the killer, attempting to flee on an outbound bus. However, the police weren't looking for someone coming into the city. They were trying to catch someone fleeing out of the city. So he literally just walked right past them. A group of elderly Mexican women fearfully identified Richard Ramirez as El Matador, or the killer. As Ramirez heard this, he saw his face on the front pages on a newspaper rack and fled in a panic. Running across the Santa Ana freeway, he attempted to carjack a woman, but was chased away by bystanders who pursued him. After hopping over several fences and attempting 2 more carjackings, he was eventually subdued and wrestled to the ground by a group of residents. The group held Ramirez down and relentlessly beat him until the police arrived and took him into custody. As the angry crowd descended on him, they beat him with their fists, feet, barbecue tools, a metal pole, and anything else they could get their hands on. The police had saved him from a growing mob, and everyone wanted to take a turn at whacking the dark-haired piñata. Richard was quoted as saying, "I'm lucky the police were here to save me." Richard Ramirez was finally identified and caught. The citizens of Los Angeles and San Fransisco Bay, they could sleep a little easier. But it would be 2 years before Richard would even begin his trial proceedings. On March 6, 1988, 2 years after Richard's apprehension, he was finally brought before court for a preliminary hearing. His piss-poor attorneys, Arturo and Daniel Hernandez, delayed the trial for years with legal nonsense. Just absolute and utter nonsense. These two, I watched some of the trial proceedings. How the hell did they pass the bar exam? How did these two actually get their law degree? It baffles me. I could probably present this and represent a client better than they could. You know, and I think I'm not sure if it was Arturo or Daniel, but one of them was also trying to get the case delayed again. He was saying he was exhausted. "I'm suffering from exhaustion, Your Honor, and I require a recess of the court." And the judge was like, "Yo, will you just shut the fuck up already, man? You know how long this has been going on for? You guys have been putting this off forever. You guys have been putting all these different injunctions and all the nonsense in here, and it's been 2 years. Enough is enough. We are going, and he actually ordered them to return to the court, and he said, you are starting this. We are starting this. Here is the day. You have to come in. It's a court order. Fuck your exhaustion. Finally, jury selection for the trial began on July 22nd, 1988. At his first court appearance, Ramirez raised a hand with a pentagram drawn on it and yelled, "Hail Satan." So we'll post that on the socials. I think it's already on there, but we'll post another photo as well. It's a pretty iconic image. It's a pretty well-known image in the true crime world. Hail Satan! On August 3rd, 1988, the LA Times reported that some jail employees overheard Ramirez planning to shoot the prosecutor with a gun, which Ramirez intended to have smuggled into the courtroom. Most likely, I'm assuming that one of his adoring fans would have done this with him or for him. Because of this, a metal detector was installed outside, and increased security and intensive searches were conducted on people entering. Another incident occurred on August 14th. The trial was interrupted because one of the jurors, Phyllis Singletary, did not arrive at the courtroom. Later that day, she was found dead in her apartment. The jury was terrified as they could not help wondering whether Ramirez had somehow directed this event from inside his prison cell and whether he could reach the other jurors on the stand. However, it was ultimately determined that Ramirez was not responsible for Singletary's death, as she was shot and killed by her boyfriend, who also committed suicide with a weapon in a hotel. Throughout all of these interruptions, Richard was perfecting his bad boy image, appearing in dark-rimmed glasses with his long, flowing dark hair. One thing you have to admit about Richard is that he has absolutely incredible hair. Despite continued outbursts and continued delays in the court proceedings, on September 20th, 1989, Richard Ramirez was convicted of all charges: 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. On November 7th, 1989, he was sentenced to die in California's gas chamber. As we addressed in our previous episode, not until 2009 was Richard also connected to the death of a 9-year-old girl who had been raped, stabbed, and hung from a pipe. After the trial, Richard had the following to say to reporters.
You don't understand me. You are not expected to. You are not capable of it. I am beyond your experience. I am beyond good and evil. Legions of the night breed. Repeat not the errors of Night Stalker and show no mercy. I will be avenged. Lucifer dwells within us all. Big deal. Death always went with the territory. I'll see you in Disneyland.
With his bad boy image perfected, Richard was showered with letters from adoring fans. So these fans are suffering from what we addressed earlier as hybristophilia, a paraphilia in which sexual arousal is contingent upon being with a partner known to have committed an outrage, such as lying, known infidelities, or crime like arson or murder. Many high-profile criminals who have committed atrocious crimes receive fan mail in prison that is sometimes amorous, flirtatious, or sexual in nature. In Richard's case, his fans went so far as to enter romantic relationships with him. Beginning in 1985, Doreen Lioy wrote him nearly 75 letters during his incarceration. In 1988, Ramirez proposed to Lioy, and on October 3rd, 1996, they were married in California's San Quentin State Prison.
I just want to say I'm ecstatically happy today and very, very proud to have married Richard and to be his wife. And I hope that you will be very respectful of the day and let me go and enjoy my day in peace.
After years of marriage, Lioy eventually left Ramirez in 2009 after DNA confirmed that he had raped and murdered 9-year-old May Leung. As we addressed earlier, she was the young girl who had been murdered and hung from the pipe. When Lioy learnt of this, she left Ramirez, and they separated in 2009. By the time of his death, Richard Ramirez was engaged to Christine Lee. After years of high-profile notoriety, the Night Stalker finally died on June 7th, 2013, of complications to B-cell lymphoma at Marine General Hospital in Green Bay, California. At 53 years old, Richard Ramirez had been on death row for more than 23 years. There's a lengthy appeals process in California, and Richard took full advantage of that. Some people estimate that he would have been 71 by the time he would have finished filing all of his appeals, which is absolutely insane. You know, there's so much evidence, and he's been convicted, but yet it's appeal after appeal after appeal. So he could have just kept appealing, you know, for years, for like another 20 or something, right? Which is crazy. You know, and you see that this man committed such heinous acts. You know, the whole country was outraged. Not much less the state of California. The whole country was outraged. The whole world was watching this case. Ramirez has this notoriety, and he has all these fans. He's getting married in prison, right? He's entering romantic relationships in prison. It's just crazy to me how, you know, I imagine that we could just do an entire, like there could have been a whole book written about his life in prison. It's just crazy. It's just fascinating to me that these people who have committed such heinous acts still have freedom. So we talked a little bit about Richard's obsession with heavy metal and how he would listen to it as he would cruise the streets looking for his next victim or the next home to break into. We also discussed in our last episode about how he left an AC/DC hat at the home of 22-year-old Maria Hernandez, who was the woman that was very lucky. When he shot her in the face, she lifted up her keys. She lifted up her hands to protect her face, and she was holding her keys, and the bullet ricocheted off of the keys and saved her life. But he left behind this AC/DC hat, and the images of the hat were released to the public through the media, and this created this frenzy where people were connecting Ramirez to the rock band, to AC/DC. The band's co-founder, Malcolm Young, said that, you know, they were connecting it to the Night Prowler because that was his favorite song. That's what he wanted to be called. He wanted to be called the Night Prowler. Richard Ramirez's goal was he wanted to be known as the Night Prowler, but the media had dubbed him as the Night Stalker, so he went with it. Malcolm Young, the co-founder of AC/DC, explained that Night Prowler is about stuff that this is what he said. It's about things you used to do when you are a kid. Sneaking into your girlfriend's bedroom when her parents are asleep. So the lyrics for Night Prowler, some of the lyrics, just a little clip, a little excerpt here. Was that a noise out your window or a shadow on your blind? And you lie there naked, like a body in a tomb, suspended animation as I slip into your room. So I think a lot of people looked at what Richard was doing, and they looked at the lyrics of the band, and even though the lyrics from that song, are claimed to be connected with an innocent act of, sneaking into your girlfriend's bedroom when her parents are asleep so you guys can get it on or make out or whatever the fuck. But you could definitely see that Richard would not take it that way, right? Like, think about, just put yourself into this guy's mindset for a minute, and you hear this song, which is a good song. I love the song. I love AC/DC. And I like Judas Priest and Billy Idol, some other bands that he would listen to. I compiled a playlist. I put it on our social media. It's a playlist of a bunch of different songs that I believe that he listened to or that he would have listened to when he was doing this. And it just kind of really puts you in the mindset that, he's listening to these lyrics from these bands, and he's not taking the right message. Was that a noise out your window or a shadow on your blind? That's Richard. He's peeping in your window, and you'll definitely see his shadow creeping in through the windows. And you lie there naked, like a body in a tomb, suspended animation as I slip into your room. And that's just picturesque Richard Ramirez. When I listen to that and I think about Richard, that's what I think, is that he was thinking, this is a sign from Satan. This is a sign that I need to commit these acts. And these songs really fueled him and pumped him up. And now, again, I'm not blaming the band. I'm not blaming AC/DC, right? I used to be a musician, and I've written some songs and lyrics that had a little bit of dark content to them. But the vocalist from the band at the time, Brian Johnson, he said that he was sickened, right? What did he say? It sickens you to have anything to do with that kind of thing. The band really wanted to distance themselves from the Night Stalker. One interesting fact about Ramirez and his various nicknames is that he was not the original Night Stalker. In Northern California from 1976 to 1979 and Southern California from 79 to 86, authorities were on the hunt for the Night Stalker, also known as the East Area Rapist or the Golden State Killer. They were not able to connect anyone to 14 murders and 70 cases of sexual assault. They were not able, these were just cold cases. And they had been dubbed as the Night Stalker. And then they needed to differentiate between, Richard's killings and the Golden State Killer's murders and assaults. And, these two serial killers were similar because they both operated in California. They both invaded homes at night, and they would kill the husbands and then rape and attack the wives. So there were similarities. Eventually in 2018, they were able to connect 72-year-old Joseph DeAngelo to these 14 murders and 70 cases of sexual assault. And they found DeAngelo through DNA from somebody doing a 23andMe, like doing a 23andMe sample kit. We'll probably cover the Golden State Killer in another episode because he is a whole monster on his own. But it's just interesting that the media had, two Night Stalkers. Before we conclude our episode, I just wanted to leave you with one final quote from James Romero III, the young boy who saw Richard at his home and who had chased him away and caught the license plate number and the make and model of the orange Toyota that he was driving. So we heard a little bit from him earlier, but I just wanted to leave you with this final quote. I feel like justice was never served. He was given the death penalty, and then he stayed in there all those years. They ended up fixing his teeth, spending a bunch of money on him. He got taken care of and lived out his life until he died. What a waste of taxpayers' money. Couldn't have said it better, James. Richard Ramirez and his life in prison, getting his teeth fixed, and all the other money that they spent on him, keeping him alive, was a complete waste of taxpayers' money. In my personal opinion, the police should have let the mob finish him off, and Richard Ramirez should have been served some street justice. For photographs and more tidbits and information about this case, you should check us out on our social media pages, which we'll drop here in a minute. If you'd like to read more about this case, I would highly suggest The Night Stalker, The Disturbing Life and Chilling Crimes of Richard Ramirez by Philip Carlo. This episode is produced by Death Hotel Creative, hosted by myself, Dr. Mystery. To view more, visit us at notwhatwesay.com, check out our Instagram handle at Cabinet of Mystery, or our Twitter at OpenTheCabinet. Thank you so much for sharing this show with your friends and family, and please leave us a review if you enjoyed the show. Let us know what topics you'd like to hear in the future. You can hit us up either on the socials or at cabinetofmystery@gmail.com. Again, thank you so much for listening, and please subscribe for more episodes.